God's story, your life. Unfolding short stories.
My name is Amelia Tabatt. I grew up in a household with 10 kiddos, both my parents being very involved, and this is my story of my mom's cancer diagnosis and journey and her going to be with the Lord. So back in August of 2022, I received a call that my mom had collapsed and been taken to the hospital and discovered that she had a mass in her brain. And at the time, I was almost 21. And so I think for me, my world, just everything starts falling apart. I just remember not knowing where I'd go or what I would do, but knowing that I wanted to just pray and believe for healing. That began an 18-month journey for my family and my mom with many ups and downs. She was diagnosed with glioblastoma brain cancer, which is a very difficult brain cancer. But as a family, we've grown up believing in healing, believing that the Lord's will is to heal. And so from the very beginning, my parents and us as a family and my church community were just adamant that we were going to pray. Over those next 18 months, most of my memories are worship nights, praying and pleading for my mom's life. After so many surgeries, and those surgeries are very difficult because whenever you're doing anything with the brain, it messes things around. And so she had to relearn a lot. She had to relearn how to walk and how to use her phone and everything like that. But I remember when she first came home from the hospital, one of the biggest things I remember is that she could still worship. And I have very distinct memories of her just being in our living room with us, just like worshiping and singing to the Lord. And that was really impactful for me because seeing my mom, the one who was walking through this, still praising the Lord, really had a big impact on me. Actually, previous to my mom's diagnosis, one of my really good friends passed away. And I remember calling my mom shortly after it had happened, and it was a freak accident. And I just was distraught and didn't know what to do. And I just remember my mom, she was like, "Millie, no matter what, you cannot blame God." And it was actually the next day that my mom got diagnosed with cancer. And that really stuck with me. And so as I journeyed this out, there were a lot of times that I would have loved to just throw in the towel and just be like, I'm done with this. I don't want to believe this anymore. But my mom's words really stuck with me. And at the time, I was in a small college through my church. And God's interesting in that. I had no plans to do that college, but then the Lord inserted me into it. And what was really cool about that is it put me in a place I was in Christian community every day. And I probably would not have chosen that on my own. One of my professors, I remember him coming up to me one day. This was several months into my mom's journey. And he just said, I have this verse I feel like the Lord has really shown to me, and he shared it to me, and it's Psalms 126, 5 and 6. And it's, those who sow in tears shall reap with shouts of joy. He who goes out weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. And that has really stuck with me because I really have chosen to believe that there's something after this journey with my mom, that there's some goodness that's going to come out of it because the Lord doesn't waste anything. We hear that all the time, and it sounds really great until you have a parent dying of cancer, and the Lord actually doesn't waste anything. And so I really held to that verse. It's brought a lot of hope because I'm like, there's something on the other side of this. So as time went on, it became more and more apparent that without the Lord's intervention, that my mom was likely going to pass away. And those last few months were really difficult, watching her grow closer to meeting the Lord and just really wrestling through that. And yet, for me, the peace that came over my mom, she was so ready to meet the Lord. She had said a lot throughout her journey because it was a very difficult 18 months that she was staying for her kids, My youngest brother is 5. But towards the end, she actually had multiple experiences of having visions of heaven. Like the Lord was really preparing her. It was in March of this year that she did pass away. The Lord had done a lot, I think, to prepare us and prepare her heart. But still, in the wake of that, it's really difficult. It wasn't until after my mom passed away that I realized how much it impacted my faith. I found myself, I was like, actually, I don't know if I believe in healing. What is the kindness of the Lord? What is the goodness of the Lord? And that was really humbling for me because I've been a believer my whole life. I grew up in church. And so to go from that to all of a sudden questioning a lot was really difficult. But I know that some of the deepest moments of my pain, some of the hardest moments when I actually chose to seek the Lord and to pursue him and to worship him is actually one of the sweetest times I've ever had with the Lord. Because I truly believe like that there's a side to the Father in the midst of your pain that you really get to experience that you don't really get to experience in heaven. Because like my mom is now with the Lord and she's not experiencing pain. She's not experiencing suffering anymore. But while she was on earth, while I'm on earth, in our pain, we get to seek the Father and we get to really see a side of him that we really don't see in heaven. And I just began after my mom passed away to just remember those times. I think that's why remembrance is such a huge key in any journey, is just remembering what the Lord has done. Because I could look at the big picture and I could say my mom wasn't healed here on earth, so the Lord doesn't heal, or the Lord doesn't do miracles. But the reality is my mom's story is a million miracles over the 18 months since she got diagnosed. There were multiple times the doctor said she's going to pass away, and the Lord saved her. There's so many times that even as a family, the Lord really just surrounded us with a good church community financially. He blessed us. Like there's so many things of you can look at the big picture and say the Lord did not heal, but the reality is he actually did so much. There's so much about this journey that I don't understand. I still don't understand it. And I think that's where a lot of people walk away from the faith over things like this, is because they wrestle so much with not understanding. But I think for me, one of the biggest things that I've come to is like, the Lord does not promise us understanding. He promises us himself. And that's where the peace comes. The peace doesn't come from having all the answers. The peace doesn't come from the perfect situation. Life will keep going and more stuff will happen. This isn't the last thing to take place. And yet God offers us himself. And that's where the peace comes. That's where the hope comes. And that's the other thing with this journey, is the reality of what hope actually is. I think we're putting our hope in circumstances. We're putting our hope in the next big job. We're putting our hope in the next big thing in our church, or the next big financial outcome, whatever that is. But that's not hope. Hope is not circumstantial. And for me, hope has become a person, and that person is Jesus. And throughout this whole journey, I would say, I have this hope, I have this hope, I have this hope. And for me, when I'm saying that, I'm picturing the Lord and I'm picturing Jesus. That's where my hope is coming from. As I've continued to remember what the Lord has done and continue to meditate on truth, that I can just feel my heart healing, and even my view of the Father is shifting and changing back to what it was before my mom got sick. And that has looked like a lot of intentional steps. I think that we really like to believe that as Christians, we can just say we believe that God is good and we're good. But I'm a really big advocate for the need for community, for the need for counseling, putting in the hard work, because I do believe there's something better on the other side of this. And I want my mom's legacy to be shared. My mom would always talk about us kids being her legacy. And I think what she meant by that a lot is like Christ in us. That for me is still pursuing the Father, even in the midst of pain and hardship. One thing that people really struggle with is they tend to see the Lord healing someone as it can only be here on earth. And I do believe the Lord does that. He absolutely does that. I still, to this day, I pray for healing. I believe for healing for people. But when I look at my mom, the reality is my mom did get healed. Would I want her to still be here and for the healing to have happened here on earth? Yes, absolutely. I would love for her to have been healed here on earth. But I cannot deny the fact that the hope of heaven is so real, and that my mom was healed. Everything that cancer stole from my mom, everything that she had to lose was restored, and restored tenfold, because heaven is where perfection lies. Jesus didn't die unto nothing. He went to the cross with joy because he knew that would bring eternal life. And Jesus' death and resurrection has become far more real to me because of knowing that my mom is now with the Lord, and knowing that my mom's healing was made possible on the cross. That has been something that I have clung to, that I have meditated on, that I will still, till my last dying breath, I know that the Lord healed my mom. Was it here on earth? No. Do I understand why not? No. But it doesn't change the goodness and the faithfulness of the Lord, and it doesn't change the fact that my mom is more healed and more whole than she was ever here on earth, even before she was diagnosed with cancer.
The Unfolding is a Wow God production, a ministry of the University of Northwestern St. Paul. Discover more at wowgod.com.